Welcome to Talk-A-Raptor episode -3. This is Talk-A-Raptor. As usual, with the Talk-A-Raptor negative series, I'm just going to list off a whole bunch of shows I've been watching lately and tell you how good they are. Let's start off with Girls und Panzer. Now this is at the top of the list because it's the first show I started watching after I finished recording Talk-A-Raptor episode -2. Strangely enough, this is the show I most recently finished watching because it had a several-month delay before the final 2 episodes. And judging by the final product, it was well worth it. The final battle was incredible, as was the battle before it. However, I'm only giving the show a double plus, not the triple plus, because everything else was just nearly okay. As with many sports anime, Girls und Panzer is strongest on the field and weakest off it. The school life segments and the family drama, it's okay, but it's nothing special. Even some parts of the early battles were a little boring, but the show more than makes up for it with the creative battles towards the end, the music, which is taken from a lot of famous war songs throughout the world, and of course, the anglerfish dance. Next up, Kids on the Slope. Finally, an O-Vitamin-A show I actually like. The music in the show is amazing, and I guess there's also some drama, and I don't even remember what happened. The point is the music is beautiful. Double plus. Next up, Mao Yusha, the Demon King and Hero. Now, I'm not usually one to pick up an unknown show the moment it starts airing, but I was pretty psyched about this show. The premise seemed really creative, and it had both a plot and a voice acting cast that everyone was comparing to Spice and Wolf. What could possibly go wrong? Basically, the show has way too many boring parts. And unfortunately, these are the parts involving economics. It's actually the parts involving the romantic comedy that I found most entertaining. There's a good old-fashioned non-pedophilic love triangle between a girl who's great at fighting and a girl who's great at economics. I can't blame the hero for taking his time. Unfortunately, the romance is only a small part of the story, and it usually ends in hero chickening out. Most of the story is devoted to the economics/invention/philosophy/strategizing, and most of it, while conceptually interesting, is executed very poorly. Either it's too simple to be interesting, or it's too complex to fully understand without pausing, rewinding, or taking notes to make sense of things. Maybe this works better in manga form, and someday I may check that out, but as for the anime, I gotta give it a single tilde. Moving on, Chihayafuru Season 2. As of right now, the season's only half over, but it's been so good so far that I'm giving it the triple plus, and it's going to stay that way even if it just coasts the rest of the way. The series really hit its triple plus stride towards the end of the first season, but because of the flashbacks and the team building around the beginning of the show, I couldn't give it the triple plus back then. But assuming this season ends as strongly as it started, the triple plus would not only cover this season, it would cover the entire series. Next up is Psycho-Pass, yet another No-Vitamin-A series that I came around to liking, despite the name dropping. The show has a few mini-arcs at the beginning, which is simply good but not great. It's in the second half of the show when we get past all the mini-bosses and we get to the real meat of the plot. That's also when the main character stops being useless and really grows as a character. The ending was also perfectly good, so just ignore everyone who's bitching about it. Final grade, double plus. Next up is Minami-ke Tadaima. Initially, I only watched the episodes with Hosaka in it because he's just one of the best characters in anime history, but eventually I caved in and watched the whole series. It's pretty good overall, and as far as the so-called slice-of-life comedies go, Minami-ke is among the best, which unfortunately isn't saying much. Aside from the Hosaka skits, about half the skits are good and half are boring. Overall, that's worth a plus, but not much more. Next up is Moyashimon Returns. I considered skipping this season since it got a bunch of negative reviews, but Reed assured me it was still good, so I'm giving it a chance and I'm currently on episode 4. So far it's not much different from the first season, but the one exception is that it's lacking those BAM moments that really made the first season special. It is, however, making Oikawa slightly less useless, which is much appreciated. So far, single plus. Now for a series I dropped after 1 episode, Urusei Yatsura. Now, in all fairness, I had no intention of committing to watching this show. I was just curious what it was like since it's considered a classic. After 1 episode, it seemed like any other Rumiko Takahashi series I'd ever watched, and I didn't see how watching another one would make my life any better. Single tilde. Now for a surprising show, Puyo Puyo. I never would have watched the show in a million years had Reed not recommended it himself and written a review giving it a double plus. I wouldn't go that far, but the show is surprisingly good in that it's good instead of bad. Yeah, it appeals to cuteness a lot, and it has its fair share of crappy jokes, but it moves very quickly, and it's fairly good with visual humor. I'm currently about halfway through it, and right now I'm giving it a single plus. Next up is Gintama. This show seems to be pretty popular. The problem is I can't seem to figure out why. The main character's a pretty cool dude, but he's basically a poor man's Ryo Saiba, which is why I dropped Gintama after 20 episodes and watched about 100 episodes of City Hunter instead. I'll probably give Gintama another chance someday, since shonen is my favorite genre of anime, and there aren't that many to choose from. I mean, just look how many chances I gave One Piece. At least for the time being, however, Gintama is sitting on the bench with a single tilde. Robotics notes. So far I've only seen 3 episodes, 2 were boring, 1 was pretty good. At this point, I'm only willing to give it the default early series single plus. That's all the anime for this episode of Talk-A-Raptor, but as a bonus, I'm going to throw in 2 non-anime triple pluses that you may want to consider checking out. The first is Stanley Kubrick's 1971 movie, A Clockwork Orange. I'd heard of the title before, but I had no idea what the movie was about, so I just picked it up from my library hoping I'd like it. At first it seemed like a bad call, since I could not understand a damn thing anyone was saying, but I was quickly captivated by the movie's nudity, sadism, and misanthropy, often in the same scene. The movie's basically about this guy who fucks with everyone until they throw him in jail. Then they fuck with him in jail, throw him back out, and everyone he pissed off in the past comes out and beats the shit out of him. I can see why it's a classic. The other triple plus goes to the State Capitol building in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. This is a gorgeous building, and best of all, it's free. So if you're ever in central Pennsylvania for some reason, I encourage you to check it out. That's all for now. See you next time.